Hello, my name is Nathan Funckes. I'm going into my third year at Grand Valley State University, and this summer was able to take part in the Modified Student Summer Scholars Program here at Grand Valley, working with my mentors Dr. Carrier and Dr. Wolf on our project Tag Automated Image Captioning.
So let's get into it. Today the internet is more important and widespread than ever before, yet many websites contain images lacking accompanying descriptions, making them inaccessible to the over 1 million legally blind Americans. Motivated by this problem and an interest in deep learning, I investigated deep learning and neural networks in order to design a deep neural network architecture capable of automatically captioning images. So, what is deep learning? Deep learning is a subfield of machine learning focused on artificial neural networks, a type of learning algorithm inspired by the brain. In recent years, these learning algorithms have skyrocketed in popularity as well as capability. They have brought us things like AlphaGo, which beat the world champion at the game Go, self-driving cars, Google Translate, and much more. These neural networks, in a very basic sense, are computer algorithms that train on specific input-output pairs and attempt to learn to predict outputs correctly. Image captioning is at the intersection of deep learning research in both computer vision and natural language processing.
Looking at computer vision, it is important to understand how computers see images. To a computer, an image is simply an array of values between the numbers 0 and 255. These numbers represent the intensity of that dot or pixel. This can be seen in the black and white photo of the number A, where each box corresponds to a number. And for colored images, these arrays are layered into three color channels: red, green, and blue. These arrays of pixels are what is inputted into a neural network in computer vision problems.
Now that we've gone over how a computer sees an image, let's take a look at convolutional neural networks, aka CNNs. CNNs are the primary architecture used when dealing with images in deep learning due to their ability to extract features from images. CNNs are loosely based off of the brain and how it identifies objects. Just like the brain, when a CNN first sees an image, it identifies low-level features such as lines or colors. These features are then used to identify more complex features such as shapes. Then those features are used to recognize even more complex features. For example, in this slide, a CNN is trying to recognize faces. First it extracts low-level features such as lines and curves. Then it extracts mid-level facial features such as an eye, a nose, or a mouth. And finally, it extracts features containing multiple mid-level features of the face. This ability makes CNNs exceptionally well adapted for image problems and is possible due to two main components, convolutional layers and pooling layers, which are stacked together as seen in the model architecture here. In a CNN, the convolutional layers are responsible for the extracting of features and work by having a feature detector step through the image, identifying areas of the image that match the feature the detector is looking for. This is a mathematical process computed across the entire image. The pooling layers, on the other hand, are responsible for saving the features that are most prominent in the image. Typically, this works by applying max pooling to the feature maps, which steps through the feature maps, saving the largest feature values.
Looking at natural language processing, it is also important to understand how computers represent text. Computers are unable to directly understand text, so similarly to the images, text must be converted into numbers. Therefore, in order to work with text in deep learning, we must first split sentences into words. Then, with the vocabulary of words in the dataset, we can map each unique word to an integer, allowing sentences to be represented as lists of numbers. Now, let's take a look at recurrent neural networks, aka RNNs. RNNs are one of the primary architectures used when dealing with text due to their use of feedback loops, allowing RNNs to recall previously seen words. To more easily understand this process, these loops can be unrolled, showing that the loop works with each cell passing some information to the next. The advantages of RNNs on text compared to traditional neural networks becomes apparent when you think about text as sequences of words, and therefore in a way they are time-based, as earlier words inform the meaning of later words. However, standard RNNs run into problems when applied to data that requires long-term dependencies and the recall of very old information.
This brings us to an advanced RNN known as the Long Short-Term Memory or LSTM architecture. This architecture was designed specifically to be able to learn problems that rely on long-term dependencies. This makes the LSTM architecture a go-to architecture when approaching problems related to natural language processing. LSTMs are able to remember these long-term dependencies by being more selective on the information they store in memory. This is implemented through the use of three gates. The forget gate determines what information or words are not important and can be thrown away. The input gate determines which words or information to store, and the output gate determines what word probabilities to output. Now that we have covered the background information, let's take a look at our approach to image captioning. When approaching image captioning, there are numerous choices that must be made. The diagram here shows prominent decisions that are fundamental to building a deep learning model for image captioning. Our specific choices include supervised learning or learning with already labeled data, the implementation of an encoder-decoder architecture, generating a single caption for the whole image, the use of an LSTM as our language model, and the use of the Inception version 3 pre-trained CNN for extracting image features. Before we take a look at the architecture for our model, it is important to understand the data we are using. Our data is made up of image caption pairs. The example here shows an image of a dog inside a car, along with 5 provided image captions for this image. This is an example image from the MS COCO dataset we used to train our model. We used 80,000 images for training and 24,000 for validation and evaluation, respectively. Additionally, this dataset includes class and superclass object labels, which we will discuss further later on. Our deep neural network architecture has two inputs, the first of which is the sequence of previous words, and the second is the image features extracted by Inception version 3. In our model, the sequence of words is passed to an embedding layer, which vectorizes the sequence and then sends this to the LSTM layer, which extracts the most likely next words. This representation of most likely next words is then combined with a further extracted representation of the image features. Together, the likely next words and image features are passed to a dense layer, which extracts the relationships between the two. These relationships are then used to generate the next word. Now that we know how the model works, it's time to take a look at the results. We'll start by looking at a few example images. For our first test image, our model has generated the caption, "A man holding a tennis racket on a field." This caption provides an accurate description of the image and shows off how well the neural network is able to describe some images. For our second test image, our model has generated the caption, "A table topped with lots of different types of cakes." This caption provides a mostly reasonable caption with some inaccuracies and shows how our model can struggle to get the details of some images right. For the final test image, our model has generated the caption, "A herd of cattle grazing in a field of grass." Now, as we can see, this caption fails almost entirely to capture the essence of the image, and combined with the previous two test images, it exemplifies the varied nature of the captions our model generates. Looking at example image captions can be helpful to get an idea of how the model is performing, but they are unable to provide a holistic insight into the model's performance. To do this,
we need to use quantifiable metrics such as the loss and accuracy of our model during training. In this context, accuracy is defined as predicting the words seen in a reference caption, and the loss metric is similar yet distinct. Where accuracy measures how well our model is predicting words, the loss is the measurement of the uncertainty in our model's predictions. Therefore, unlike accuracy, the lower the loss value, the better, as it means our model is more confident in its decisions. Now, with an understanding of loss and accuracy, we can see in these graphs that the accuracy and loss for both improve, therefore signifying that learning is taking place.
We have now seen evidence that our model is learning, so let's move on to generalization. In this context, generalization refers to the model's ability to actively apply what it has learned from training data to non-training data. We measure this with a validation dataset made up of images the model has never seen before. The performance of our model on the validation set is seen in the solid blue line on the above graphs. Looking specifically at the graph of loss, you can see that the model improved on the validation set over time, although not to the same degree as the training set.
We have now looked at a few ways to gain insight into our model's performance: examples, loss, and accuracy. Another useful tool are the various automated evaluation metrics widely used to compare the quality of generated text. These metrics are very useful as they provide a quantifiable way to measure a model's performance, they are automated, and able to take into account the many complexities of language. In this table here, we can see our model scores on these metrics, which are comparable to published scores for this problem.
Now that we have seen a complete implementation of a neural network to caption images, let's take a look at some further experimentation done to try and improve the captions generated by the neural network. As mentioned earlier, the MS-COCO dataset includes labels for the object classes that appear in the images. The dataset contains about 80 base classes, each of which belongs to one of the 12 superclasses seen on the left side of this slide. For example, this image has the labels for dog and motorcycle, which fit under the animal and vehicle superclasses, respectively. Next, we will look at how we decided to leverage this data to try and improve our model. After some experimentation, we decided to add a vector of size 12, which represents all the superclasses appearing in an image, and combine this input with the most likely next words and image features to allow the model to be better informed on which words are likely to appear given the superclasses that appear in the image.
Now, let's look at how this change to the neural network architecture and additional information affects the metric scores. Looking at the table, we can see that every score is higher for the model with the added labels, showing an overall improvement in our model.
This brings us to how we plan to continue this research. Our current goal is to work to determine the significance of the improvement to our model resulting from the addition of the image labels, and from there to determine our next steps.
I've learned a lot throughout this research and would like to thank the GVSU Office of Undergraduate Research for funding and supporting this project, and I'd like to thank you for listening.